So, a few months ago, SNL decided to put together a fun little skit making fun of nerdy D&D players.
Force field! I am hurt, but I eat a berry to replenish my health. Then I strike you both with the giant's chain.
Needless to say, it felt kinda tone-deaf, and it really didn't go over all that well. But what happened next was pretty magical. The D&D community rallied, banding together on social media to post a D&D selfie. And this movement showed how the community has broken well beyond the stereotyped and tired trope of the nerdy IT crowd. It's a community that includes people from all different walks of life, whether it be different races and orientations or just different life experiences and interests. It is a beautiful, welcoming melting pot. I mean, just look at all of these amazing, beautiful people. And these are some of the amazing, beautiful people that I play with.
My D&D character is a young girl named Akihiro. She trained to be a swashbuckler. She's proficient in several languages and is incredibly stealthy and a graceful and effective fighter.
My character in Dungeons and Dragons is Frigaria, a druid. Special skills include turning into a bear, talking to plants. Frigaria's personality is kind of grumpy, not very friendly, not very diplomatic, not very good at talking to people, and perhaps this reflects elements of my own personality. If I was a druid, I would be quite like Frigaria.
My D&D character was Salazar, who was a tiefling bard, and the second character I played in that same campaign was Kufla Medvav, a dragonborn cleric. Both very different characters. I guess both of them had the kind of little bit of an edgy, chaotic vibe to them, but good people. Enjoyed playing both of them. They were both really wonderful characters to explore the world, the campaign that I was part of.
Now, personally, I'm way too insecure to take a selfie of myself and then post it as part of a trending hashtag, but not too insecure to put my face up on video and make these YouTube videos. So I was planning on making this video anyway, but now it feels all the more relevant. You should try Dungeons and Dragons. There has never been a better time to give it a go, but because every single YouTube video these days needs to be listicle, here are the 6 reasons why you should absolutely try Dungeons and Dragons right now. If the slow creeping of age has taught me anything, it's that becoming an adult means making plans with your friends, and then pushing those plans back because of a conflict, but promising you'll really swear to meet up one day, and then you push them back again and again, and then one of you dies. But what playing D&D does is that it encourages everyone to make the time. It's a game that you play as a group, sharing the experience and the story together as you go. And probably most importantly, it's a cooperative game. Unlike Risk and Monopoly, D&D hasn't ended any of my friendships. What's also great about it is that it's a game that's usually played in person and in our collective imaginations.
D&D has definitely brought me closer with my friends. I think that, everyday life doesn't give you the same kind of insight into how your friends react when there are a group of bandits attacking you, or you need to use bardic inspiration to come up with a song to get you out of a situation.
It is literally one of the only experiences left where we're not staring at a computer screen or a mobile phone. And that also means that it's one of the few experiences where you are truly living in the moment with the people that you love. You don't need the medium of a movie or watching a sport together to connect, and your dinner or drinks aren't constantly getting interrupted by email alerts and the latest stories on Instagram. At its best, when you're all playing D&D, you're all fully immersed in a moment together, and that is something that is incredibly rare.
When I first started playing Dungeons and Dragons, I feel like I knew, we played as a group with me and my girlfriend and 2 of her friends, and I think when we started playing I knew them alright, but I didn't know them very well, and I feel like we've really got a lot closer as friends over the time that we've played.
So if being an adult means never seeing your friends, then D&D is like a magic portal back to your childhood. You still get to do all of the catching up you would have over a shared meal, but once all of that good stuff is done, you get to the game. You get to have fun together. It's like a grown-up, or not so grown-up, version of a playdate.
One of the things that kept bringing me back to Dungeons and Dragons was the time I got to stay with my friends, which it became a solid foundation for me and a few of my good friends to spend time together to catch up. I mean, of course, when we played D&D, we'd be our characters for many hours of that time spent together, but we'd also cook meals together, we'd also spend time chatting beforehand. It was really, I think that it was one of the, of all the social things that I did, it was the one that held the most regular space for catching up in a meaningful way and to play together, I guess, as adults, which is fantastic. It's not, I suppose you could characterize it as childish in some ways, but the depth and the humanity and emotions of our game really brought out that adult, playful environment, which is really important thing.
And I guess that brings us to point number 2. You get to tell stories together. So we modern living folk have truly become massive consumers of media. We binge watch show after show, and after we've watched it, we all gather together online to discuss everything that happened. We lose our minds together, sharing the awe of seeing Captain America swing Mjolnir at Thanos' face, or watching Daenerys burn the Lannister loot train with a dragon. What is great about Dungeons & Dragons is that it pretty much becomes a long-running TV show that you and your friends are the stars of. And when you do awesome stuff in-game, you'll freak out about it like you do when you watch it on TV. Only you did those things.
Is an incredibly powerful weapon, and it was a real pleasure to use and to turn trees into wood chip and slice off the heads of my opponent.
It sounds totally insane. It probably is. But even though everything that happens is happening in your shared imagination, the events that happen in-game feel like real events, and you talk about them as if you'd actually done them.
We ended up like opening a pub and adopting a tiefling orphan from the neighbourhood, and I think that it's great to be able to exist in a story that is not just your own imagination or one other person's imagination, but combines the desires and ideas of a whole group of people.
So it's you burning loot trains and hitting Thanos in the face, which makes those moments all the more powerful. All of the heart-wrenching defeats and hard-fought victories are fully your own, and you get to share those amazing moments with your friends. It's truly magical.
But I think that whilst all the action that takes place is in your imagination, the experiences are still quite real, and going through all the adventures that you do as a party and the interactions that you do, you discover a lot about one another's personalities, and really any character that you play is just a version of yourself. I think a lot of the situations that we went through still feel very real to me in my imagination.
Not only that, but because D&D is a game that's based around telling a story, it inspires art in almost all forms. Whether it's players writing their characters' tragic backstories, or map making to help them visualize their imagined world, or full-blown character art and landscapes, or even real-world crafting and cosplay, D&D inspires it all. It is inspiration station for anyone who is even the least bit creatively minded, and that's across disciplines and forms of artistic expression. I mean, look at these maps I made! And that art behind me, that is character art that I had commissioned to remember a campaign by. And this awesome potions vial, well, my friend made it to use as a drinks bottle when we play. It also featured in a recent Game of Thrones video. And this cool-ass dragon? I painted it. I've never painted anything in my life before. Whew, calm down, Julian. It's just a game. Gonna need some water after that one. Anyway, that is just my stuff and my experience. D&D inspires this kind of thing with all sorts of people all over the world, and you don't need to look far on the internet to find it. I mean, there's some nerdy-ass voice actors in Los Angeles whose D&D game inspired a whole animated TV show. The point is, in Dungeons & Dragons, not only are you sharing in a story together when you play, it will also inspire you to share that story together in all sorts of ways you probably couldn't even have imagined or fathomed when you first started. Gods know, I definitely didn't see myself painting a dragon. But speaking of getting started, reason number 3 is that it has never been easier to get started. The most recent edition of Dungeons & Dragons is super accessible. Accessible as in, like, you can go download the basic rules right now for free. $0. On top of that, the actual rules have trimmed out a lot of the fat. I'm a fairly new player, but I've read that D&D used to involve a lot of math. So much so that a notepad and calculator were pretty much a requirement to play. But the new design got rid of all of that, making sure to get rid of anything that got in the way of the actual adventure, characters, and story. On top of how easy it's become, because it's gotten more popular over the last few years, there are tons of beginners' tips and tricks all over the internet. So whether you're trying to figure out what a bard does or what a furbolg is, there's resources out there for you. It has become super easy to kick off your own game, and especially at the start, it's important to remember that these are more guidelines than they are hard and fast rules.
The code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules. Welcome aboard the Black Pearl, Miss Turner.
Just aim to have fun with your friends, and you can work out any of the speed bumps or more complicated rules as you go. Like with anything else in life, knowledge comes with time. And speaking of life lessons, that's reason number 4. D&D can actually help you in real life. And obviously the first way it helps is the most universal. Whether you play the game because you like shared storytelling with your friends, or whether you play it just to roll some dice and kill some demons, Dungeons & Dragons is a great way to unwind. By immersing yourself in an imagined world with a friend, you put your mind in a place where it can totally forget all of the worries you had just 15 minutes before. Whether your catharsis comes from defeating an undead scourge, or just opening a local pub in a village, the experience is cathartic. And so that makes Dungeons & Dragons a nice break from our bleak, literally on fire world. But at its best, D&D can be so much more than just an escape.
You can become as much as you want to another character. You can stick it as close to yourself as you like, and it's all happening right there in front of you. So anything can happen at any one time, and you can make those choices as meaningfully as you want to, which is really great for a lot of people who are processing what it means to be different people in their own lives.
Because you're playing with your friends and as a different character in an imaginary world, it can offer you a safe space to explore different facets of your personality or even face some of your fears. As an example, it made me feel far more comfortable putting on terrible accents for humorous purposes. But it's also been super helpful in helping me confront some of my social anxiety.
I guess at the beginning I was a bit shy and didn't want to act too much my character, and also didn't really know what I was doing.
In short, it can give you a chance to explore parts of yourself that you don't really get to express or confront out there in the real world. Certainly not at the office.
When we characterize ourselves in a certain way or a certain context, and we force ourselves to make certain kinds of decisions, become really aware of decision making on the spot and how to meaningfully engage with other people who have different opinions. I think that's conflict resolution is a big part of what I got out of D&D as well.
I think experiences from D&D often come in useful in real life, particularly in situations where you're at a really dull event and people are talking about stuff that you really don't care about, and you can just kind of bullshit them all for a while. It gets you really, really good at just talking rubbish, making stuff up, you know, on the spur of the moment, which is quite a useful skill, I think. And pretending to be the person that you wish you were. I think that's another useful skill that you can learn through Dungeons and Dragons.
But that is pretty exceptional, and it comes with a lot of personal investment. And you don't need to do that to play Dungeons and Dragons. In a far more grounded way, the best skill that you can pick up while playing is learning to improvise. I first started playing back in 2017, and I'd actually just wrapped up an improv course that I was taking with a friend just for fun. And the famed magic that powers improv is yes and. That is to say that when something happens or an idea is created by one of your improv partners, you cannot say no. Even if you don't think it's that funny of a joke or a scenario, it's up to you to roll with the situation and try and make it funny in your own way. Yes, and that is the same kind of magic that happens when you and your friends are playing Dungeons and Dragons together. D&D is a game where you can often find yourself in situations that are outside of your character's control. It could be that the big bad evil guys have snuck up on your group while you're camping at night, and now you have to fend them off in your pajamas. Or it could be that your group's barbarian has gotten drunk again, and he started a fist fight with the god emperor of an elven kingdom. When you and your friends find yourselves in those situations, you just have to roll with them and proceed as best you can. And that shapes your mind. You become better at shaping ideas and interactions just off the cuff. You live more in the moment, which means you're much more ready to react if a curveball is thrown your way.
It is certainly an environment where that fosters the development of lots of skills, including improvising, spontaneity, just being flexible, because you're always on your toes. You don't know what's going to happen next. You just have to go along with, you know, whatever the group wants to do or whatever the dungeon master kind of has in mind. Also, just, you know, being able to articulate what your character is feeling and trying to be true to their character is, yeah, it's a really interesting skill.
That is a skill that is useful no matter who you are or what you do, and you get to practice it while having fun with your friends. It doesn't get better than that. 5, there is literally nothing else like it. Now, this may come as a surprise to many of you watching, but I am a nerd. Since I was a kid, I've been reading books, geeking out over movies, and wasting so many hours on video games. Pretty much, if a medium could tell a story, I became obsessed with it. So, given all of that, it is kind of weird that I hadn't played Dungeons and Dragons until recently. But I had a lot of the stereotyping hang-ups that have haunted Dungeons and Dragons for decades now. I was a nerd. I loved stories, but I wasn't one of those nerds. You remember those nerds from the SNL video?
Our Lord approaches. Let us listen with a quizzical ear and a heart of bravery.
Well, I'm here to tell you that that was all 100% bullshit, and I'm so sorry that it took me this long to see it. There is without question no other storytelling medium that comes close to the experience you have when you play Dungeons and Dragons.
D&D is a unique experience because the dungeon master is, you know, opening up their imagination and creating a playground just for you. You know, you also get to be a different person, experience different things that you wouldn't in your everyday life. You know, being able to play, really just play in someone's imagination for hours on end, you know, creates some kind of connection that is unique and really powerful. And we have all these shared, you know, collaborative memories of things that never happened except for in our imagination.
Whether you're reading a book, watching a movie, or playing a video game, the story you're experiencing is always limited by the authors. Even in video games with branching choices, you're limited to the choices provided to you by the creators. But D&D is a wild world based on you and your friends' imaginations.
I think what makes D&D a really unique experience is that it's a world created through the shared imagination of a group of people. And I think that, you know, once you get to high school and you start existing in stories and movies and TV programs and computer games, it's all in the imagination of somebody else. And rarely do you have a chance to really influence the world that you're imagining being in. Whereas I think with Dungeons and Dragons, you know, well, depending on who your dungeon master is, you do get the opportunity to really build the world that you're in and decide what direction it takes.
There are no limits, and the story is fully your own. As a player, you get to choose who your character is, all of their strengths and their weaknesses, and you get to make their decisions and their mistakes. And if you're the dungeon master, you get to create a massive, infinite, imaginary playscape that you can unleash upon your players. And watching some of your close friends interact with and shape a world that's only existed in your own imagination is deeply gratifying. I'm a writer. I've written 2 books and a whole bunch of YouTube videos. Some have been successful, and others not so much. But nothing has ever made me feel as fulfilled as a storyteller as seeing the genuine joy on my players' faces when they bought a pub in the imaginary city they'd been living in for a month and adopted a little orphan girl and treated her like their own family. Just to be clear, she was imaginary, but they treated her like they were her real-life parents. And no storytelling moment has ever hit me as hard as having to share in the experience of their sadness and despair when a bad guy kicked their asses and burnt one of them to death. It was totally heartbreaking. But the fact that we all felt and shared those genuine emotions together while we were just playing a game around a table, well, that's totally unique.
You can really get involved in some really intense emotional states, and then you can just come straight out of those at the end of the session.
There is no other storytelling medium out there that can do that.
I once again had that feeling that you get, or that I used to get, when you've just been lost in an imaginary world for hours and hours and hours, like when you're a kid and you're playing, I don't know, Legend of Zelda or something, and then you suddenly realise it's like 7 o'clock on Sunday night, school tomorrow, and you just feel that deep nostalgia for the world that you have to leave behind as you return to reality. I think lots of Sunday afternoons spent playing Dungeons and Dragons really transported me off into another world of fantasy and imagination.
6. I need more people to play with. Is this last point kind of cheating as a reason why you should play? Yes. But seriously, I cannot get enough. For the better part of the last 2 years, I have been running 2 games with 2 different groups. But one of those groups recently split up because half of them decided to move to some magical realm called the United Kingdom. Wherever that is.
We've since left Australia and we're no longer playing together as a group, and I really miss my character Frigaria. I miss being Frigaria.
So now I'm jonesing pretty bad, guys. I need my fix.
Not this again.
Scott, you find yourself in the darkened forest you've been living in the last few days. The trees loom above you as the sound of a gentle rush of a stream perks up your half-elven ears. Behind you, forever chasing you, are the spirits of those you killed all those years ago. What do you do?
I move towards the stream, keeping an eye out as I go.
Alright, make a perception check.
17.
You take a few steps towards the stream, and a crazed river hag leaps out, a half-eaten fish stuck on a single gnarled tooth, extending out from under her jaw. "This will be your end, boy," she says. What do?
I seduce the river hag.
You... What?
I seduce the river hag.
Make a charisma check, I guess?
It's a natural 20 for a total of 34.
You seduce the river hag. Please, guys. Scott is all I have. I need more of you. Please. So, yeah. I need more players. But more importantly, as I said at the end of my last video, the world needs more storytellers. And there's no better way to tell a story than around a table with your friends.
Hey!
Scott, as you sit in the warm comfort of the Stoneman's Rest Inn, your mind wanders back. You hear a distant echo in your memory, a long forgotten name of the nemesis who cursed you all those years ago.
Who is it?
Make an intelligence check.
17.
As a spoon passes your lips and you chew on the food, you remember. You remember his name. The serial killer.
That's terrible.
It's not a joke, Scott. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Scott. I'm so sorry. What will I tell his girlfriend? It's a grown-up, or not so grown-up, version of going to your friend's house and hanging out in his backyard. That sounds dirty.